All right, here we go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's get it. Hey, yo, what it is and what's good, y'all? Welcome back to 280 Plus, the social media podcast where I take the conversations off the timeline and go beyond the post. I'm your host, Slows Def, and I'm back here for episode 188 of the platform. Yeah, man, if you're new to the platform, I need you to hit that bell for notifications, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. If you're returning, hit that like button. Leave a comment below in the comment section if you want to join the conversation, right? And if you know anybody that's interested in what we're talking about today, then I need you to hit that share button, like blast that share button, man. Share it to whoever you think, whether it's the clips, whether it's the full episode, whether it's the shorts, right? Help a brother out, man. Help the algorithm, right? So, man, yo, we back here for episode 188, and I'm back here solo again. And today we got some dope topics, man. It took me a little bit to kind of put this outline together, but yeah, we got some dope stuff that we're gonna talk about. So first thing that we're gonna talk about, a crime that happened here in the great state of Pennsylvania, and it's a little wild. It's something that we ain't never seen before, right? I'm kind of just preface it like that, and it might be shocking. Hopefully it's not shocking content. But anyway, yeah, we gonna talk about something that happened in Pennsylvania that I've never seen happen, and hopefully, depending on what state you live in, hopefully you've never seen that happen as well. So we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk a little bit about the WNBA Draft, right? Just some highlights of the draft, just a couple names, but then also kind of like a scandal that kind of happened as a part of the WNBA Draft, and why one player was left out, pretty much, right? Like they were pretty highly touted, possibly supposed to go first round, but ended up going undrafted altogether. We're gonna get into that story. Then we're gonna talk a little bit about, man, I seen one of the best interviews I've seen in a little bit, right? In a little while. And it was Damon Wayans on Club Shay Shay, right? So I'm just talk a little bit about the Wayans brothers, Damon Wayans, and some of the things that he kind of focused on. It was a dope interview. Gonna kind of compare it a little bit to the Cat Williams interview, just a smidge, right? We're gonna do some comparisons, and then get into that. We got another recap for Hollywood Demons, episode 3. This one is about the Power Rangers, right? The dark side of the Power Rangers. And then we're going to talk about the Havoc at Harvard, right? The Havoc at Harvard. And I'm going to give you the inside scoop about some of the things that are going on as it pertains to that. All right. So, yeah, man, let's, again, if you're new to the channel, I need you to hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications so you can stay up to date with what we're talking about here. Leave a comment, leave a like, right? Comment anything, whether it's a heart, you could even, if you got some criticism, if you think, we can fix some things, let us know in the comment section. All right. So, yo, all right, man. So, real quick, hold on. All right, so I've told y'all before, I live in Pennsylvania, right? I live in the great state of Pennsylvania. I don't live, when people think Pennsylvania, they automatically just think Philly, they automatically just think Pittsburgh, right? But I live in what's called Central Pennsylvania, South Central Pennsylvania, probably to be more exact. And I live in a part of the areas called the Susquehanna Valley, which is basically like 3 cities. Like if you put them together, it actually would be pretty dope. In terms of just like population, in terms of commerce, like because there's a lot of things that kind of go on, but by themselves, these cities probably pale in comparison to everything else. But those 3 cities are York, Pennsylvania, Lancaster, and then Harrisburg. So right by the right near the Capitol, I live, right? So, right, speaking of the Capitol, the craziest thing happened. Just the other night, right? I think it was Sunday night. Yeah, early Sunday night. And apparently there was an attempted arson at the governor's mansion, right? Attempted arson at the governor's mansion. So we're going to talk about that. And so what we have here, what do we have in terms of this? Okay, so this is something I've never seen before. I've never seen anybody try to do anything to our governor. I've never heard of a story, that made massive national headlines about even like somebody trying to vandalize or destroy the property, the governor's mansion. But somebody, yeah, they try to burn it down right after the governor just celebrated the first night of Passover with his family. So our governor in Pennsylvania is Josh Shapiro. Pretty well respected. A lot of people thought that he might have been chosen as the vice president candidate, right? But then again, it was like I think some people felt like putting him in might kind of ruffle some feathers in like national politics or even world politics because like I said, he is a Jewish man. Obviously don't have no issue with that, right? No anti-Semitism or anything like that when it comes to this platform. I love Jewish people. It don't matter, right? All that good stuff. So, but very a young guy. He's been in since 2023, so he's only going into his, it's only his second year as a governor. But yeah, pretty well respected, pretty well liked nationally on both sides of the aisle. People really rock with him. So yeah, this man tried to break in there and yeah, burn the joint down. So the suspect, his name is Cody Balmer, right? And he hopped the fence or the gate or whatever it is, and he broke windows with Molotov cocktails, right? Made with beer bottles and gasoline, right? And I guess that's how you make it anyway. Early Sunday morning. Um, luckily, Josh Shapiro and his family, they were inside, but they were not harmed. Um, they were not harmed. They said that basically the report is that they were evacuated at about 2 a.m. So this was again, it was really very early, middle of the night type of deal. And one thing that they said, like the firefighters said, is that like inside the mansion there were certain doors that were closed, and they said that had those doors been open, that it could have spread to the living quarters, and then we could be having a totally different conversation right now. So, but yes, shout out to the first responders getting out there and protecting the governor, and then thankfully the governor and his family have not been harmed. The suspect though, Cody Balmer, when you look at the mugshots, you look at the pictures of him, like, yeah, this dude looked like he been through it, right? So this man, Cody Balmer, is described as a man who struggled to pay his mortgage, and he was actually going to court to face like a domestic violence charges, right? And he made some comments that kind of lean towards this being a possible hate crime, and he made some instances talking about Gaza and basically kind of putting that on Josh Shapiro's lap, right? And again, I've never talked about that type of stuff. I've never talked about the conflict in Israel because I don't know enough about it to really give my 2 cents. It's not my fight. It's not my fight. So like I don't get into that. I would never for something that's going on internationally, I would never personally have any animosity for people that live in this country um that are on either side of the coin. They are like, he's getting charged with like attempted murder, aggravated arson, breaking the enter. Like he's getting charged with a lot of different things. One of his parents, his mom had came out and said that he has struggled with like mental health issues. And I believe if I'm reading the report correctly, they're saying that this guy, like, he called the cops himself. Like after he set the fire, he called the cops on himself. So this is something where he's probably my guess is that if he is going through some mental health issues and he's also having some legal troubles and financial troubles, this guy was looking for a way out, right? And probably not, didn't want to go the extreme route and take his own life, but he feels like he got a chip on his shoulder and somebody got to pay for his circumstances. And I'm assuming that's why he went about what he went about. But like, man, like, I don't even know exactly where the governor's mansion is, but obviously it probably has to be in the capital, but like you would hope that it's in a place that's a little bit more inaccessible. And although the governor probably does have a lot of security, they don't have Secret Service level security. So but yeah, I think that's probably gonna change. And it's just unfortunate, man, because when things like this happen, so many other things kind of shift, right? Whenever like whenever something bad happens, and obviously we're reacting out of fear and things like that, something always, the people that are not committing the crimes, they always get the short end of the stick. Um, in matters when it comes to matters of safety. So, man, I don't know what's gonna be the aftermath. This man is, he is considered a suspect, but like he definitely did it, right? He definitely did it, and we're just gonna see kind of where it goes from there. But yeah, definitely unprecedented. Like, leave a comment below, man. Like, what is if you live in a different state, if you are a resident of a different state, what's the craziest thing that's happened to like a governor in your state, right? I think that's crazy. That's crazy. Trying to burn down a mansion, and like there was a lot of fire damage. So like it definitely, yeah. There's demo crews out there. They got green dumpsters out there throwing out a lot of mess. So they definitely got to renovate and fix that up. But in terms of the long term implications, well, it's only time will tell, but definitely crazy, definitely wild, and man, lock that dude up, man. Lock that dude up. Cody Balmer. All right, watch out for that guy too, and his people if they on that same type of time. But yeah. So what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? What's crazy about again, what's something what's a crazy thing that's happened to a governor in your particular state? What's also just in general, like, what can they do to kind of stop stuff like that? Should they have like state police kind of just like right there on the perimeter? Should they have a cop kind of stationed there at all times? That's probably where we're headed. That's probably where we're headed after this, but you never know. You never know. So crazy little opener, crazy little story, but let's move on. Let's move on. All right. So the WNBA draft was this past Monday, right? It was on the 14th, right? And if that sounds a little bit soon, it's because it is, right? Because the national championship, the women's national championship was on like the 6th, was on Sunday, April 6th. That was the national championship. And then talk about a quick turnaround, right? And this is the crazy thing. I think if most people, most men, I'm gonna say, because we are the biggest consumers of sports because women ain't watching like women's basketball. Let's keep it a buck, right? More men watch it, but neither here nor there. For people that don't pay attention to this, and this is something that I realized a couple years ago, but especially because like women's basketball has gotten like larger and larger and more popular. But like it's crazy to think that like it's such a quick turnaround. Like it's such, and most people don't even realize that. But like there's no WNBA combine, there's no like pre-draft workouts. It's all right, you played your season. Now, ladies, let's get it together because because your season starts in probably about the end of May or June, right? So WNBA season starts then. So it's like they got to hit the ground running. And so the draft was, like I said, just a week after the national championship. And we definitely got some stories and some headlines from this draft. Now, I gotta say, I'm not that this year. Obviously, there were some names, and obviously there's some women that are returning to school because like I said this in, I think it was the last episode or episode before that when we talking about Juju Watkins, where a lot of people are saying like, "Oh, yo, you should be able to go pro right away, right? If you're a woman." But I understand why they don't because yo, there are three rounds, right, in the WNBA draft, which is one more round than the NBA draft. However, there's only 38 picks, right? There's only 12 teams in the WNBA, and then what it looks like is like in round two and round three, they have like a 13th pick. And it's probably like a compensatory compensation, like a compensatory pick. Probably like if you're like a weaker team, you probably get like an extra pick or something like that. I don't exactly know how that works, but they have there's 12 picks in the first round, and then second and third have 13 picks each, right? So I'm not gonna break down the whole draft, but obviously we're gonna talk about some headlines and some names that kind of stand out from this draft. So one of the names, obviously Paige Beckers. I said her name totally wrong in a couple podcasts ago. I said like Bukers, but and that tells you I don't really watch too much college basketball. But she was anticipated and expected to go number one, and she did go number one, and she got drafted by the Dallas Wings, right? So, obviously they weren't a good team. If they have the number one pick, they weren't a good team the year before. Hopefully, having somebody like Paige Beckers helps to turn their franchise around. Another notable pick was Haley Von Lith, right? This is the girl that she transferred to TCU. She played with Angel Reese. She played with Angel Reese and Flau'Jae and all them down at LSU. She played with them last year. She played with them last year, and obviously they didn't win anything. But prior to that, see, and there's some people that are talking like, "Oh, well, at least she won a national championship." She did not win a national championship because she was not on that team from 2 years ago or 3 years ago. She was not on that LSU team that won the national title when Angel Reese was a sophomore. They did not win that title. She was at Louisville, and a lot of people talk about Haley Von Lith because they feel that when she was with LSU, she did not live up to the hype. Like she transferred to LSU and she didn't live up to the hype. But then this was like a redemption year, and a lot of people were like, "Yeah, see, she always was a bucket. Like she could always get a bucket. She was always nice. Y'all was sleeping on her." Well, it's like no, she went to a smaller school or lesser known school because she wanted to get out the spotlight. And I'm not hating on her, but she went 11th, right? So she wasn't top five pick in the WNBA draft. She's still a good player, but she is gonna be reuniting with her old LSU teammate Angel Reese. And the Chicago Sky, because she went to the Chicago Sky. They also have Camila Cardoso. They have Angel Reese, and they have some other players that pretty solid. But yeah, it looks like they kind of reloaded, and they should be ready to go. So we'll see how that plays out. Some people would say that like her crying face, like because people get emotional when they get drafted. And some people say her crying face was because she has to play with Angel Reese again. And I doubt that's the reason. I think, she was, grateful and just humbled by the experience, right? Another big name in college basketball that did not, and there's a lot of big names in in women's college basketball, but like these are younger players that are gonna be sticking around. But the name of a winner, right? A notable name is Flau'Jae Johnson, right? And it was kind of surprising maybe to some people, but she decided to forego the draft, and she is coming back for her senior season. And one thing they talked about is how, man, like she's just been strategic when it comes to like her endorsements and her NIL opportunities, the business standpoint of everything. Like she's been very strategic. And this past season, she had her best season yet. She averaged over 18 points a game, um, probably about like 6 or 7 assists a game, but she is coming back. And she has some massive endorsements, right, with a lot of different companies. And she's a Rock Nation athlete. So she's signed to Rock Nation, and she's had all these different endorsement deals. So she's making money. She feels like it's her best chance, and then she's probably sticking around because probably everybody knew that this was going to be the Paige Beckers draft, right? Next year, some other names will emerge. I think like the tall girl from UCLA, I think she's still only like a sophomore going to be a junior, so she might even come back for an additional season. The girls down in South Carolina, there's a couple girls from UConn that are really good that are probably like going to be sticking around. So we'll see. We'll see kind of where it goes. But yeah, Flau'Jae decided like, nah, I'm gonna come back next. I'm gonna graduate because, like I said about the Juju Watkins, I think a lot of women realize that like, hey, at the end of the day, this basketball stuff might not go my way. Like they don't have the same opportunities. There's only 38 positions. Only 38 people are drafted every year, and there's the same amount of female college basketball teams. There's the same amount of women's college basketball teams than there are men's. The same amount, right? A large number, and only a fraction of them get drafted as opposed to a bigger fraction get drafted in the NBA. But also there is no women's G League, right? Women most times have to play overseas if they don't have the opportunities here. But yeah, finish school. Most even the best players, they finish school. They go to the end, and they finish, and because they need to make themselves, they need to protect themselves, and they need to have a backup, so to speak. That's why I'm thinking why you finish. But also now that these women are getting paid, you might stand to make more money staying in school than to just hop out there and into the draft. But the controversial name that I wanted to talk about, and this is the first time I even heard about this girl. Again, not the most versed. I just thought it was kind of crazy, like this scandal, this story. But it was Haley Von Lift's teammate. Her name is Sedona Prince. She's a 6'7" center, white girl, right? Um, she was projected to possibly go in the end of the first round. And I seen this one. The reason why I want to talk about this because I end up seeing a content creator like talking about it, like, yeah, we're so glad we're like, yeah, you probably seen in the draft that Sedona was like one of the best players available, throughout the whole draft. And like, yes, she got overlooked, she got picked, and she talked about like something that she did, like, yeah, because we're stepping up. I'm glad that the WNBA is stepping up, and and she was suggesting that she did something. Well, I end up looking it up, and yo, this is like, this is kind of unprecedented. This might be the first girl that's been kind of like low key me too'd that I've seen like ever, right? And especially in the sports world. But this woman, right? She didn't get drafted amid all these different allegations, including there's domestic violence allegations, there's some we'll call it some sexual misconduct allegations, and it's definitely something that is carrying over with her. And again, like we see it all, we see it in the NFL draft, we see it in the NBA draft. When guys do some crazy things, these organizations, they look the other way and they're like, yo, that's I'm not dealing with that headache. And the problem with her allegations is that, like, usually men, like, yeah, they're if they're doing something dumb, they probably committed a crime, and like unfortunately they might commit a crime against another woman, like a woman. They might, so like they don't have to necessarily be with women, but like still certain GMs, they worried about the image of the team and fans and things like that. The problem with Sedona Prince and her allegations is that she's also harming women, but she is a woman, so she's gonna be around women on a daily basis, right? And there's women in the WNBA that date each other. That's why like when you really break down the WNBA, and I've seen a bunch of clips last year, that was probably the most coverage I've ever seen last year of the WNBA in terms of like the inside and outs. But like, yeah, bro, there be breakups and makeups and all type of stuff that be happening. There's like extra drama in the WNBA that could be what's holding the league back, or it could be something that somebody learns to kind of exploit and kind of get the best of it so these women could get paid more. So more people are going to their games. But her first allegation, this only quote I'll read, was the first allegation dates back to 2019 when Alyssa Jimmy claimed that Sedona Prince had sexually assaulted her after a date. Jimmy told the newspaper that Prince penetrated her. Ooh, I might have to bleep that out. But Prince penetrated her with her fingers without consent while they were sitting in her car, which the athlete allegedly refused to unlock. Right, and then it says the accuser claimed Prince told her side told her she didn't take her out for nothing. Right. There is a domestic abuse, assault or domestic dispute where Sedona Prince ends up with a black eye, and then the other girl ends up with like a bunch of scars. So maybe she wasn't the aggressor, or maybe somebody was acting in self defense. There was another incident where basically the girl made another woman, the Sedona Prince made another woman, you know, fondle her, so to speak, right? Like, and this is what I'm thinking, man. This woman is 6'7". This woman is 6'7". I'm assuming, unless she dates basketball players, I'm assuming most of the women that she's dating are these like petite little women, right? Maybe a thick girl here and there. Maybe she does deal with a thick girl, but like she probably is bigger and she's overpowering to most of the women that she kind of encounters. So yeah, she could still, get a workout and end up on a team. You know what I mean? But she might have to take her talents overseas. They said so that was the allegations were a reason why she didn't get drafted. Another reason why they said she didn't get drafted is because they feel like she's old. Like they said she's like one of the oldest players getting drafted. She just finished her seventh season in college basketball. Now she had some injuries, but she ended up like getting like waivers for eligibility, and the GMs felt that like they weren't sure if she was actually good. They're like, yo, is she good or is she just dominating these 18-year-old girls? So yeah, so I believe Sedona Prince is about 25 years old. Let me just I can fact check that real fast here. How old is Sedona Prince? Yeah, Sedona Prince is 24 years old. Haley Von Lith is 24 years old. So I don't think it was the age, because Haley Von Lith is also 24 years old. She's also somebody that was in college for like 6 years, right? So I think if somebody says the age part, I think that's a little bit of a cop out, especially when you think about the WNBA. When it first started, most of the women were grown anyway. Like there wasn't there were drafts obviously after the first year, but like everything else was like most of these were veteran women. Like Lisa Leslie she was a rookie in the WNBA, but she was already a pro for years, so to speak. So I think the age is a little bit of a cop out. And I think they don't want to say. I think the allegations are in the back of everybody's mind, but they probably can't like legally. They probably can't say like, oh, it's because of conduct, because she never was convicted of anything, and any charge that she received, any charge, because yeah, some of these things resulted in charges. Any charge that she received was eventually dropped. So either these women like worked it out, or maybe this woman intimidated these others to change their story. But either way, yeah, man, this 6'7", this possibly could be a dominant force in the WNBA. She did not get drafted, and they think it's because she be wilding with the females. So what do you think? What do you think? Let me know in the comment section. Should Sedona Prince have been drafted? And I guess I'll ask too. What team do you think would have been the right fit for her? Where should she have gotten drafted to? And is the WNBA missing out, or are they kind of protecting the league a little bit and the women that consist of that league. What do you think? Let me know in the comment section. All right, man, we're gonna move on. This is one of my probably my favorite parts of this episode. Is gonna be talking about Damon Wayans, right, and the Damon Wayans interview. So let's get into that real quick. All right, yeah, Club Shay Shay, man. You know, Shannon Sharp, man. You know, running a fine platform, man. When it comes to the interviews, and he's only elevated as he's going on, gotten bigger names as he's going on. And I just happened to I seen he had Damon Wayans on, and I said, "What the heck?" He had Damon Wayans, and I seen some clips over the week or two, and I was like, "Oh, let me check this out." It's a long interview. This interview is like it's 2 hours and 41 minutes, and I'm not even finished with the full interview, but I gotta say, man, it was amazing, man. This was a good interview. Real quick, I'm gonna compare it just real quick to the Cat Williams interview. Cat Williams interview was amazing, obviously, but Cat Williams interview was like really shocking. That's what kept everybody there because it felt like he was very unfiltered and just saying whatever he wanted about other comedians, and like we ate that shit up. Like we saw it and we was like, oh yeah, yeah, man, we give us more of that. Like we want to hear these inside stories. We want to hear that hidden animosity that you have, or in this instance maybe it's more public animosity, but like I think that's what intrigued everybody. Cat Williams did go in different directions when he was starting to talk about like just life and things like that. I don't want to say he got in too much too he didn't get too much into spirituality, but just like talking about truth, and everybody felt like he's like the whistleblower of the year. So that was at the end of 2023 or very beginning of 2024. So it was a year ago, and definitely killed it, right? It was a good interview, but I would say that when we look at his interview in totality, the attitude and the vibe was kind of hate. It was a lot of hating. Like Cat Williams was a little bit. He came off a little like when you look at it in hindsight, he came off bitter. He came off bitter. And this interview, I think, is better. This is a better interview because of how much love that came out of Damon Wayans as he's talking about all his experiences. Like so, and it reminded me how much I actually do love Damon Wayans, and Damon Wayans he is one of my favorite comedians. He is one of mine, and I have some experience seeing him stand up, but obviously shows and movies like he's one of the best ever. He doesn't get talked about as one of the best. I feel like although he's probably the most nowadays, if we go revisionist history right now, Marlon is the Wayans that everybody talks about and everybody loves. But like he has not achieved what his brother has achieved. He's not on Damon Wayans level. And some people might even put Keenan Ivory ahead even of Damon Wayans. Maybe not in terms of humor, but in terms of business. But like all of them do business together. All of them do business together. So but I gotta say that this one, it was so much love, man. Damon Wayans is so lovable, man, and he has so much wisdom, and he's just so sure of himself. And I learned a lot. Now, a lot of the stories that he told some similar stories that Marlon told, and I only seen clips and pieces of Marlon Wayans interview. But Damon, again, he has a different stature. He's on a different level. So it's like I was drawn to Damon Wayans because he's one of my first favorite comedic actors. And given that Damon Wayans never really like everybody loves Eddie Murphy, right? Eddie Murphy has always had edge to him, right? Well, he had an edge to him, and then obviously he went to like become a family man. And I was a fan. I'm a fan of early Eddie movies, but like that family era of Eddie movies, I'm not the biggest fan of all those. But like Damon Wayans pretty much kept the same energy, and then like he excelled a little bit more in TV than Eddie Murphy did. Like Eddie Murphy, the only time he really was on TV was Saturday Night Live, but Damon Wayans was on two very successful series. One a sketch comedy show, and then obviously My Wife and Kids. But Damon, man, he always kind of kept that edge to him. He always kept that edge to him. So a couple of things that I learned in this interview and that I liked and that I did not know. And this is probably like something that a lot of people knew, but like it's one of those things that since I didn't see it, since we didn't have social media, they weren't really focusing on this and probably told not to. Like the media was different back in the day. Like you had to get like you couldn't even get access to certain people if the questions weren't right, right? You had to respect celebrities in a little bit different way. And I think overall, I think that's why like my generation, millennials, we do look at celebrities a little bit different and we expect a little bit more from celebrities. That's why when like all this stuff is coming out and these younger celebrities be putting all their business out, a millennial like me is thinking like, yo, what are y'all doing? Like, who is doing damage control for y'all? Who is your manager? Who is your publicist? Who's your PR? Who's in your PR team? Because why are y'all like why is all this information out here? Like what are we doing? Right. So, but back in the day, like you had to come with some respect. You couldn't ask people certain questions. But the reason I'm talking about this is because one of the things that they kind of started the interview with was talking about like Damon Wayans, and he has a club foot. I ain't know this dude had a club foot, and it makes sense though because he made a. Well, maybe we'll get into it a little bit, but no, we won't. We won't get into it. So, um, Damon Wayans made a cartoon series back in the day, and I guess Eddie Murphy. No, Eddie Murphy does have more success in TV because we talk about the PJs and what he contributed in terms of animated humor, animated comedy. Eddie Murphy has the PJs as well, but Damon Wayans made his own cartoon, and I remember it. It was called Wayne Head, and a lot of people don't remember Wayne Head, but Wayne Head was basically it was like a loose representation or depiction of him, and it was this little kid that grew up in New York, and this poor kid, but he had a club foot, and I don't think I remembered that Wayne had a club foot. So, I didn't even know exactly what a club foot was because like, yo, when they said it, I was thinking like, what the hell do that mean? Like, and I'm picturing this club foot. I'm picturing it. Now, obviously I didn't do a deep dive on it at the time I was watching the interview because I was like, it didn't matter that much. But he did and he spoke about it, whatever, but because I'm picturing like something's wrong with your foot, like in terms of like you ain't got no toes or something like that. You know what I mean? Like web toes versus non-web toes and all that. No, it's and Damon talks about it, is like his one leg is like really twisted inward or twisted in a twisted out it's twisted out of shape. I don't know what direction is, but his foot is twisted out of shape. And nowadays it is correctable. Like it's almost always correctable. I looked it up. It's very rare. Only 200,000 cases per year. And I know, yeah, yeah, fewer than 200 U.S. cases per year, and that's considered rare. And I know that sounds like a big number, but it's rare. It's rare, but it can be corrected. But they say that early intervention is key. And if you know anything, Damon Wayans is 64 years old. Damon Wayans was born in 1960, so his birthday is going to be coming up at some point this year. So imagine what healthcare was like in 1960, right? It was definitely segregated, right? It was intolerant, it was racist, right? So he probably didn't get the right intervention that he possibly needed to correct his club foot, but it's something that like he lived with and something that kind of gave him thick skin because he always had to defend it. One thing that he talked about was like, yeah, like um whenever they would be roasting each other and stuff like that, like he said like, yeah, my thing was always to get you to look up because I'm vulnerable down there, my foot is vulnerable. And so like anytime he would be talking to people and the way he presented himself, he was always like trying to get your attention with his words so you can look at him in the face as opposed to paying attention to some type of disability that he might be suffering from. But so that was just amazing. And like the way he was talking, you could just tell he had like a lot of wisdom and like a lot of dope experiences. So one of the things that he talked about, and maybe Marlon talked about this at one point, but he talked about he talked about his start in comedy, and like I'm talking about as a little kid, like what made like because the Wayans, when you look at them, there's 10 kids overall. There's four or five kids that were in show business at some degree, right? We talking about Keenan Ivory, we're talking about Damon, we're talking about Sean, we're talking about Marlon, we're talking about Kim Wayans as well. There might be another one or two that might have, got on TV at some point. I'm talking about back then because obviously Damon Wayans Jr. is an actor, and Damian Dante Wayans, we've seen him. He was one of the actors in Major Pain, right? He was like the teenage like black dude that like had the headphones and stuff like that. That's one of his nephews, so to speak. So, but so talking about like how they, we know he was on Saturday Night Live at one point in time, got fired. He started with stand up just like most comedians do. Started with stand up. He didn't just start acting. But how did this family, how do you have a funny family? How does all these different members of your family who come from very humble and poor beginnings, how are they all funny and how do they all excel? Well, they used to play a game called Make Me Laugh or Die, right? Make Me Laugh or Die. And he feels like this is the reason why they are as funny as they are. So they used to play this game, and so what they would do is they would all kind of sit together, right? And it would be the kids. Like they would all sit amongst each other, and you had to kind of perform for your brothers and sisters, and you had to make them laugh, or you had to quote unquote die, right? And when they say die, they would dare you to do the craziest thing, right? And so an example of that would be, oh, all right, make us laugh or die. And then the die would be, yo, you need to go drink one of daddy's beers right in front of his face, right? And so obviously, like that was going, they was gonna get a beating if they did that. Or another one might be like, all right, yo, go pass gas near mommy, like go sit on her lap and pass gas, whatever. And so crazy things like thinking as a little kid, like it's kind of disrespectful, but it's funny also, but also it's something that builds character. And he said that like, yo, they were incentivized not to laugh. So like even if it was funny, like it didn't count if it was just a smirk or if it was just a chuckle. You had to get everybody laughing in unison, right? For you to pass the challenge. And or you had to die and you had to do that thing. And if you chose not to do the dare, then all of them would beat you up, right? So they getting beat up by all of them. And he talks about his oldest brother. His oldest brother name was Dwayne, right? Dwayne Wayans. That's a wild name. But Dwayne, he said like something was wrong with Dwayne, and Dwayne hit mad hard. Like he said he would make sound effects when he would hit you, so like you would feel all of them, and he said it would make it a lot more worse. But like just imagine a game like that where that's really testing your wits and testing, you getting to test out material and proving that you are funny or not, because yeah, you trying to avoid the worst kind of punishment that there probably is as a kid. You know what I'm saying? So I thought that was dope. I also thought it was one thing he said. He talked a lot about his mother and father, and how much, just their humble beginnings. They talked about like the food that they ate and all that, right? And really good insight, right? And good stuff there. But he talked just about like the relationship that his mom and dad had, and he said that, watching his dad, it taught him unconditional love. It taught him, both his mom and dad, because he said that like, his mom had dreams, but like she was pregnant. He said, yo, my mom was pregnant like my whole childhood. My whole childhood she was pregnant. He said she always had a baby in her arm and a bump, right? She always had a baby in her arm and a bump. And they were poor. They were poor. They didn't have any money, especially before somebody like, Keenan Ivory gets any success. They were broke. And he said his mom would get mad and she would call him their dad all type of names. and he said he was funny because he was like, yo, we were thinking like, yo, man, you cuss her out, hit her or something like that, and it was, and although it's inappropriate, it was mad funny when he said it because it was just like, what, like, because that's the thing. Damon says the craziest things. Like Marlon, I think Marlon is really funny because I think Marlon is very charismatic and he's just goofy. He's like it's almost like an innocent humor, so to speak. Damon, his humor be cutting hard and he's ruthless with it, right? And it part of it is because of his condition, how he was born, and like he always had that edge to him. But he said that like, yeah, his he said, yeah, man, my mom used to cuss my dad out all the time. And he said, yeah, when my mom passed, he said my dad, man, he just got sad and he just would always say, like, I miss my gal. And they'd be like, you mean the lady that was cussing you out every day? Like you miss her? Like what? Like, and he said like seeing them go through everything that they went through and seeing how his dad, he said that was the best thing his dad could do. The best thing that his dad did was come home every night. And he said there's way he had my dad had way more than enough reasons to kind of just check out and bounce, right? Like, and that's the stereotype, right? A lot of that's the stereotype. That's the stereotype. We're not gonna get into why. Like obviously, mass incarceration plays a role, but like there's a lot of the deadbeat dad, right? The deadbeat black dad. And no, even though he wasn't a strong provider, or he kind of did what he had to do, and it might not have equaled a lot monetarily, but like his presence was there. He was a hard worker, but Damon said that his dad taught him unconditional love, and he admired that, right? And I just thought that was like, I thought it was amazing and powerful. And yeah, so Damon, man, gets all into talk about everything about his career, how he got onto In Living Color, how he got all these different roles, and it's definitely an amazing interview, something to check out. One of the things though that Shannon Sharp wanted to bring up was the religion, right? So the Wayans, or Damon Wayans, yeah, the Wayans, at least they were born, or they grew up Jehovah's Witness. And yeah, and I wonder what that is about, right? Where Shannon was making a connection, was saying like, yeah, like all these like really famous people from at least at one point in time have been Jehovah's Witness, and notable people would be obviously the Jacksons, right? Michael Jackson included, the Wayans. He said a couple other names, but yeah, like some of these people, they grew up Jehovah's Witness. And he talked about that, and I don't know a lot about the religion. I do know that they have certain restrictions, and when it comes to like the kind of media and content that they consume, and they're not into magic, and we know that they don't celebrate holidays. But he said that that's one thing, like his dad was Jehovah's Witness, but his mom, she celebrated every holiday. He said, yeah, he's like, so what would your dad do? He said, I don't know, he would go in the room, like he he said he would just go in the room. But he talked about how it just seemed like he wasn't being preachy, and that's one thing I appreciated about that. But Damon, and he was like, "Yo, are you still Jehovah's Witness now?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "I am." He said, "Yeah, I just feel like it's the truth. I feel it's the truth." And he didn't, like I said, he didn't get too preachy about it. But one thing I know is like with Jehovah's Witnesses, that like they're of this world. They're in this world, but they are not of this world. Like I know that's like a phrase that I've heard about the religion. So where like they might not have as many restrictions. They don't have all the different restrictions and like a lot of the shame that we have with certain things. But like it seems like people in that religion are very grounded in what they believe in. But also, and he said, yeah, like you probably close the door on some of us. He said, yeah, you probably close the door on me. But I just thought it was nice to hear somebody like talk highly of what they believe in their belief system, and then you see them as an older person and they seem to be well rounded and down to earth, so to speak. But at the same time, they're not preachy and making it like real judgmental. Like he wasn't getting into it and wasn't claiming this, but Yeah, he felt very secure in that, and I just not that I'm considering it or anything like that, but I just thought it was refreshing to see somebody that you know, like I said, feels that they living what they live in and enjoying it. Like he's like I enjoy it, like I love it, you know. So I thought that was interesting. So, but yeah, go check that out, man. A lot of cool stories, man. He talks about Jim Carrey. Man, he talks about his career, talks about, making money in the industry and like how he's still getting checks and how, his brothers, even though they were in some series and stuff like that, how they're not getting paid because of just the stipulations and things like that. And he's like, nah, you gotta, just kind of talk about the path. But he is in a new show now. It's called like Papa's House. And it's on CBS and it's a big network, but his son is in it. So it's him, his son, like Sean, he talks about Sean. Sean is a writer. Even Damon Wayans. Damon Wayans is a writer. Like he says, like he has tons of scripts done, ready to go, and he said that's what he does. So he stopped doing stand up a little while ago. But yeah, Damon Wayans is my introduction to stand up live. Right, first comedy show I ever went to. I was a teenager, and my mom and my aunt took me to see Damon Wayans in Harrisburg. And as a kid, I can't remember the jokes verbatim, but I remember laughing out loud and thinking like, "Yo, this dude is the funniest dude in the world." And right after he did this stand-up special, that's when My Wife and Kids came out. And I was a huge fan of My Wife and Kids. That's definitely a show that I want to run back. I recently did like start watching it again, and like, yo, he's mad funny. Like, he's so funny, bro. He's so funny. Like I said, he's underrated, man. He don't get the I gotta look up like if he has any like notable specials. He don't get that kind of love, but like he's definitely he's in my personal top five because I love almost every movie that he's ever been in. Like I love it. I love it. So definitely, man. If you're a fan of Damon Wayans, or you don't feel like you know a lot about Damon Wayans, if you feel like you don't know much about this guy, go check out his interview, man. And it's dope, man. But this guy is like fully at peace, and he's living his best life, man. So shout out to Damon, man. Shout out to him. All right, let's switch it up. Let's switch it up. We gotta finish it up pretty soon. So yeah, let's see. Okay, we got another recap. We got another recap. So this one is on Hollywood Demons. We got Hollywood Demons recap, and this was episode 3, and this was talking about the dark side of the Power Rangers. And I was pumped when I seen this, Joan. I said, "Yo, what are they going to tell me about the Power Rangers?" And the way that it leads into it, they basically talking about like the trailer. It's like all this bad stuff is happening. All this bad stuff is happening. So the Power Rangers. Yo, the Power Rangers been around for over 30 years. The Power Rangers have been around for over 30 years because they're still the property, even though like it might not be a series on right now, they are still in the works of making they're keeping it alive. They're keeping it alive. And so this one it talked about the obviously it chronicled Power Rangers from the beginning to like kind of where it is now. They focus on the curse of the Red Ranger, right? They think there's a Red Ranger curse. They focus on the beginnings of it and like how the creator of it was like really not treating the people right, the actors fairly and paying them properly. And then it talks a lot about Jason David Frank, which is who we know as Tommy, who we know as the he was the Green Ranger, the first Green Ranger. He was the White Ranger, and then he becomes a Red Ranger, and that might be why his life and it might be why he got to the outcome that he got to. So the Power Rangers. So one of the man, we was watching this show. I remember when this show came out, and this show would come on every day after school, a new episode every day after school, and you would rush to see it. It was very low budget. The original was very low budget because some of the footage, like the first 60 episodes, some of the footage is like was in Japan, and they decided like the creator was like, "Yo, we could make money off of that, and we could do that in the United States." And so they decided like to basically they decided to hire some American actors and like kind of create a storyline, and then all the fighting footage would be like the Japanese stuff. So like they weren't even having to do much in terms of stunts and things like that early on, like very, very early on. But yeah, every day after school and they just talked about how big the Power Rangers were, and in the 90s this was the biggest toy ever. Like it surpassed everything. Like it was bigger than Barbie. It was bigger than GI Joe. It was bigger than all the video games, right? That just existed, and it number one selling toy. And but it was crazy because the first Saban, yeah, his name was like Haim Saban or something like that. He was the original creator of it, and they was talking about like this wasn't a union show, like this wasn't tied to any like the acting and stuff like that, it wasn't tied to the union. So like, yo, these people, these young actors, the original five Rangers, they was getting abused out there, they was getting abused. They weren't making money. So a couple of things. It was reckless. There was a lot of injuries, a lot of crazy injuries happening on the set, and like them not really addressing it, but just making them keep working. They were working long hours because if you're a union, like there's a certain amount of hours that you can work. Also, the conditions had to be good. Um, they were making them do stunts, and like a lot of people was getting hurt. Like yeah, they were doing a lot of their own stunts early on, after they got out of like the period where they were using like the Japanese footage, when they actually did start to do stunts, they were making these people do all their stunts, right? And so it's led to mad injuries, long hours of work, and on top of that, they were not getting paid properly. Like they were talking about stuff like as low as like, let's see, like $750 like an episode, or or a week. Like they were not making no money. When once it became union, yeah, they're making like $10,000 an episode. You know what I'm saying? So like big difference, big difference. So they talk about that. One thing, and I just thought it was crazy, and it's like it didn't ruin the show for me though. Like it doesn't ruin the legacy. Like some of these things that they've been showing, kind of like the first episode with Stephen Collins, that kind of like taints Seventh Heaven a little bit. But like this doesn't necessarily taint the Power Rangers, because it did become more professional and legit. And obviously like it was on Nickelodeon for a while. Disney now has the rights to it, and like they are about to reboot the series again. Um so one thing they talk about was they feel like there was a curse of the Red Ranger. So like that was the Ranger that they were going through, like they were going through the Red Rangers like they was going through underwear. Like they was always switching the Red Ranger, and then like they would look at it, like over the years they looked at these different Red Rangers, and a lot of these guys that played the Red Rangers like either suffer from drug abuse, suffer from alcoholism. Couple of them, took their own lives, and then we even have one guy who committed a murder, right? And he used a prop. He used the prop from the set. He used the prop. He had a sword. He stole a sword from the set and used it. And like it was because this character for a little bit, and this was like, oh, hold on. This was obviously like a more he was in the more modern version of the Power Rangers. But they basically talk about like, yeah, he stole a prop from the set, and he played a villain at one point in time. And yeah, he stabbed this guy to death with this sword, right? And like impaled him. Like, and they said he talking about it was self-defense. And they feel like the guy who his victim had like all these defense wounds on his hands. And the way the puncture was, it wasn't like if you just stab somebody self-defense, you poking them, whatever. But like this joint went through the back of this person, so like he drove it into that person. So it was definitely more than self-defense. So they talk about that. And they also talk like the revolving door of the Red Ranger. Some of it was contractual. Some of it had to do with like people like bucking at the system and like arguing for more money. So yeah, it was talking about a lot of stuff like that. And just also some of the like the stereotypes and things like that were among them. Like one of the things that they mentioned was how they felt like it was like in hindsight, they felt it was such a bad decision to make the Black Ranger, the original Black Ranger, a black dude, and then the original Yellow Ranger to make her an Asian woman. And they pointed out, but it was like the show was already made at that point, and they're like, ah, oh, damn, like that probably wasn't the best thing. They did feel that the actor for the Black Ranger, his name is Walter or something, but they felt that he kind of his charisma kind of fit that character the most, so to speak. So, but like, yeah, if you ever like Wikipedia, go Wikipedia Power Rangers, and yo, you gonna see like there's like 20 different versions of the Power Rangers, bro. And again, they're thinking about rebooting it again. There was a Netflix reboot where they brought everybody together, like they brought all these generations of Power Rangers together. I never watched that one, but I remember seeing the 2017 movie. So the 2017 movie was like basically it was like the original Power Ranger story once again, but like modern. And I remember, I feel like my son he was old enough to go. He would only been like 3 years old, so he probably didn't remember it. But I remember taking him to see that, and yeah, I seen every Power Rangers movie that there was. The Power Rangers Turbo movie was trash. The first one was amazing with Ivan Ooze. The second one, I don't really remember what that was all about for real. But then the one that we know from 2017, that reboot, that I thought it was lit just because, and I think a lot of people assumed that that was gonna be like the cast, and I think they kind of went in a different direction after that anyway. So, but yeah, man, dope stuff. And the last person that they talk about though with the Power Rangers is the most iconic Power Ranger, the most recognizable Power Ranger, which is the actor is Jason David Frank. We know him as the character Tommy, and he was the best ranger, the biggest ranger ever. He was the original Green Ranger, and we remember, like, I remember seeing that character arc when the Green Ranger appeared, and he was a bad guy for a couple episodes, and then like basically they defeat him, and then he becomes a good guy. So then now there's six Power Rangers, and then when they come out with a new season, I believe it was they came out with a new season and we felt there was no more Green Ranger, and we're like, oh damn, they got rid of the Green Ranger, and then they present, well, we got this White Ranger, and so we're like, oh, who's the White Ranger? Like, oh, okay, I guess, and then he takes off his helmet, and it's Tommy, and we're like, yeah, let's go. So yeah, so Jason David Frank, man, the guy that played Tommy, most iconic Power Ranger. He's somebody that kind of stuck around even when he was on the show. He still represented the Rangers, and then they brought him back for like a lot of different versions of it, right? And he played different versions of the Red Ranger, or I think he was the Black Ranger at one point in time. So like, yeah, so he was a part of it. And one thing they talked about with him was like he constantly went to all these different conventions, because like all the different like Comic Cons and stuff like that, and he would make a lot of his living like going to all these autograph signings. And he talks about all the different people that he inspired and touched their lives. And he started to really, Dr. Drew feels that he started to internalize some of the issues that some of these people went through. Jason David Frank had a brother, right, that played in a couple of different episodes as a villain on Power Rangers, and then he ended up becoming a Ranger. I don't know what version, but he ended up becoming a Ranger. Well, this guy, his brother, and it was an older brother, his brother committed suicide, right? His brother took his own life, and then Jason lived with that for a long time, like for more than a decade. He lived with that, and that grief, and but he was going to the convention, speaking life into people. But when you're hearing like sad stories about people, and you're not really trained or equipped to like really deal with that or unpack that type of stuff, it probably can have an effect on you. So, and then They talked about what is it? Was it in 2022? 2022, Jason David Frank ended up taking his own life. So let me just double check that. Jason David Frank. Yep, 2022. Yep, November 19th, 2022, man. So rest in peace to Jason David Frank, the most iconic Ranger of all time. It was sad. It was, kind of sad, but also it was like cool that the fact that like a kid show, something that was relevant and super big when I was a kid, how like it still stood the test of time, and like it's kind of dope that like other generations of kids got to experience the Power Rangers as well. And then like even my kid like had a little bit of a. I remember he had a big Power Ranger toy. Everybody, the Power Rangers are like an iconic reference, like Um, so yeah, they talked about all that type of stuff too, man. And man, just how big of a franchise that was, man. It's amazing. It's amazing. But what do you think? What do you think? Who is your favorite Power Ranger? What was your favorite version of the Power Rangers? Like what version? It's definitely Mighty Morphin for me. Maybe a little Power Rangers Zeo, maybe a little Power Rangers Turbo. But yeah, that's my era. That's what I liked. And I liked when they got rid of Rita Repulsa and Lord Zed was like the main bad guy. That was when I even, yeah, the bad guys were even cool. Goldar, like, bro, they was lit. They was lit, man. But Zordon, Alpha 5 or Alpha 6, whatever. Yeah, that was my jam though. But man, who's your favorite Power Ranger, man? Let me know in the comment section. All right, man, we about to wrap this up. We gotta put an end to this, man. We gotta put a bow on this. We gotta wrap this up. And last thing we're gonna talk about, man, is yo, man, the government, bro. They wilding again, man. They on some stuff. And so we're gonna talk about the havoc at Harvard, right? So the government, I'm just gonna be nice and I'm gonna say the government. I'm just gonna use the government. I'm not gonna say nobody's name, but the government has decided to freeze funding to Harvard University. Freeze their funding, so I guess they get about $2 billion in funding, right? Now, I seen a couple of different people talk about this. One person I seen talk about this was Anton Daniels. And I don't know, man. I'm not gonna get into the politics of it, but like, I don't like when people tell half the story. I don't like when people they only seeing one. They literally only see one side of what's going on there. And one of the criticisms is like, well, why are they getting all this money? They have a big endowment. Like their endowment, like how much money they have, like kind of stored, is like they have like $53 billion stored. However, the money that they have, like the money that they get in grants and federal funding, it has nothing to do with like them maintaining the school. The government pays, gives, they have a contract basically with Harvard to do different forms of research, right? Whenever there's like some groundbreaking discovery, or they want to learn more about a certain topic, right? They employ Harvard to do the research on it, because Harvard is considered the most prestigious private university, and that's a key word here, private university in America. There are other ones that compete with it for sure. There's other great universities. There's MIT, there's Yale, there's Princeton, there's Columbia University, NYU. You have a lot of great universities, but Harvard is the gold standard. It's the gold standard. And so we pay we fund them to figure stuff out for us. So that doesn't funding stopping the funding or freezing the funding does not do anything to harm anybody but the American people. It doesn't harm the university, because they could just conduct their own research and then keep that research for themselves instead of sharing it with the public, right? But they do. So I don't like that part of it, where it's like a lot of like misinformation and people feeling like, oh, they stealing money from the government. They're not stealing anything from the government, right? We pay them to do it's for research purposes, and it's for good research, and it's for stuff that when we find groundbreaking information on whatever it is, whether it's law, whether it's medicine, whether it's psychology, like anything, like we learn stuff through them, and they share with the American people. They share with the public. You know what I'm saying? So there's that. But so one of the things that has happened is um basically the government is on one, and they're basically trying to tell Harvard that they need to switch it up. Like they need to change a lot of different things with them. So the government has demanded some sweeping changes. Um so by the White so it says the sweeping changes by the White House would have transformed Harvard's operations and ceded a large amount of control to the government. So remember, this is a private university. So a private university should be able to they should be able to hire who they want. They should be able to admit who they want. They should be able to study whatever they want. They should be able to, like it's their choice. It's a private institution, but they're being threatened with some changes, and so Harvard received a letter on Friday, and it was obtained by the New York Times. And said the university had failed to live up to the intellectual and civil rights conditions that justify federal investment. The letter included 10 categories for proposed changes, including reporting students to the federal government who are hostile to American values, ensuring each academic department is viewpoint diverse. I thought we didn't like diversity. I thought this administration didn't like diversity, but so they don't want diversity in people, but they expect that the viewpoints of the different professors and stuff like that is diverse. That don't even make sense. Like if the population isn't diverse, then the opinions and the viewpoints aren't going to be diverse. But whatever. It says hiring an external government approved party to audit programs and departments that most fuel anti-Semitic harassment. So they making claims that like I guess since the conflict in Israel has erupted, there have probably have been some students that have been pro-Palestinian, not necessarily pro-Hamas, but pro-Palestinian, and they're making these claims that it's all that stuff is anti-Semitic. But again, I brushed on that real quick in the beginning of the episode. That's like, if you have that much conviction to protest and talk about Palestinians, I'm willing to bet that these people, especially on Harvard University's campus, these are not people that want smoke, or these are not people that want problems, and they're not trying to start some anti-Jewish hatred, right? I think maybe they have family there, maybe they are Palestinian, and they looking at this on a humanitarian level, like where the certain things have been done to some Palestinians have been wrong. There's a lot of things that have happened to Jewish people, and Israeli people that are wrong, and it's probably more so like, oh, let's stop the conflict, but holding one side more accountable than the other. That's what I'm assuming, but I don't know. I don't know. I've never seen any headlines that showed like, oh, they're doing anti-Semitic things at Harvard. I've never seen it, so that's why I think Harvard probably looking at it as like this is a witch hunt. That's why they disagree with this. And it says checking faculty, staff for plagiarism. So obviously these are published. All these people are published. Like if you're a professor at Harvard, you have a doctorate. Like there's probably no regular professors there. Like you have a doctorate, and all these people have to be published. And if they're published, then they're peer reviewed, and all that stuff gets scrutinized for plagiarism already. So I don't know what's going on with that. It says the president has accused leading universities of failing to protect Jewish students when college campuses around the country saw protests against the war in Gaza and U.S. support for Israel last year. The letter orders that the university take disciplinary action for violations during protests. And it says here, in explaining its rejection of these demands, Harvard President Alan Garber said the university would not surrender its independence or relinquish its constitutional rights under the First Amendment protecting free speech. Although some of these demands outlined by the government are aimed at combating anti Semitism, the majority represent direct governmental regulation of the intellectual conditions at Harvard. Right. So yeah, so then shortly after his letter of resistance was sent, The education department said it was freezing $2.2 billion in grants and $60 million in contracts to Harvard immediately. So it says here, this is from the Department of Education. It says Harvard's statement today reinforces the troubling entitlement mindset that is endemic in our nation's most prestigious universities and colleges. Department of Education said in the statement. Man, ain't nobody. This is what I'm willing to bet. Right, so this is my closing. Like most people that probably graduate from Harvard are probably conservative. I'm just this is not like the most liberal school ever. Like let's stop pretending that. This is just an attempt to like shape and mold and form society to be a certain way, and I felt like there was one point is like, these are people that believed in these at one point in time, these are people that believed in free speech and kind of doing what you want as long as you ain't breaking no laws. And now this is about control. It's a lot of control that's happening. And I just feel like, again, this is a private university. If this is a public institution, then anything goes. But this is a private institution, and okay, freeze the funding and less research and less breakthroughs happen. I mean, or the money goes somewhere else and from other universities that comply. But like trying to this whole notion of how they basically paint even colleges with this broad brush of liberalism, and I just feel like that's not even fair or accurate. And like there's a lot, it's almost like college, like conservatives aren't college educated. You know what I mean? Yeah, they're very college educated as well. So I think it's whack. I think it's whack. I mean, ain't nobody. I'm all for change if it's necessary, but like, wasn't nobody coming for Harvard up until a couple years ago with that affirmative action stuff. Like, we ain't hear nobody coming at Harvard and disagreeing. And after the affirmative action case, after affirmative action got taken away, then the Asian students were still mad because their admission still went down. Like it went down. It was less because yeah, like bro. It was never no anti-Asian stuff. You know what I mean, it was never about excluding nobody. It was about opening the door, and you got rid of it, and now all of it is a lot of nepo babies and legacy kids, and similar populations that it's probably been, but like a little bit less Asian. But I don't know, man. It's too much of my energy. I can't spend a lot of my energy talking about that hatred, man. Talk about that nonsense. So I'm gonna wrap it up. But yeah, man, I had a good time, man. Good time. What you think about this week's episode? We definitely, yeah, man. We got some stuff. We got some stuff in the works, man. We got some stuff in the works. Happy to be here, man. Hopefully, man, y'all enjoy y'all Easter. Easter is coming up. Hopefully, y'all have a good Easter break, Easter weekend. Some kids are on spring break, I guess now. Hopefully, you enjoy that and get the best and everything that you want out of that. Bro, summertime will be here before you know it, man, and I'm excited about it. But yo, this is another episode of the 280 Plus Podcast, episode 188. I'm your host, Lowe's Def. Again, if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications, hit the like button, leave a comment, and share the content. Right? It's your boy Lowe's Def. This is episode 188, and I'm out. Peace.